In George Clason's The Richest Man in Babylon, the first lesson we learned is that a rich man's pocket can quickly become empty as he spends. We shouldn't measure wealth by how much money someone has, but rather by their sources of income. All of this depends on our attitude, our mindset. So, what are the secrets to achieving wealth? We shouldn't measure wealth by how much money someone has, but rather by their sources of income. And all of this depends on our attitude and our mindset. Wealth can be achieved by following 3 commandments that we'll learn about today. Let's look at this commented summary of the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. The beginning of the book introduces us to 2 characters who decide to learn how to become wealthy. So they go to Arcad, the richest man in Babylon, looking for advice. And what is interesting is that there was a time in the past that they were friends with Arcad. They studied together, they played together. So at no point in the past, Arcad appeared to be smarter or more skillful than the other 2 characters. And when they looked back at the time they spent with Arcad, they couldn't remember seeing him, the richest man in Babylon, working any harder than anyone else. So, what was his secret? Arcad, the richest man in Babylon, begins to share his story. Before coming to the answer, there is 3 initial assumptions that need to be taken into account. Number 1, to become wealthy, you must understand and follow the universal laws of enrichment. There are 2 types of people who don't accumulate wealth: those who don't understand the laws of enrichment and those who, despite understanding, don't respect these universal laws. Second idea, wealth is good. Wealth is a catalyst for life. When you're wealthy, it is easier to experience life more fully. And here is the third idea. It takes time and study. And everybody has the same amount of time. It's just a matter of how we prioritize different things. And when I mention study, it means you need to know how to look for information. How did Arcad learn these universal laws of enrichment? Through a teacher. Because in the beginning, Arcad was not rich. Remember, he had nothing, just like these 2 other friends who were asking him for advice. And one day, Algamish came along. Algamish was a very rich man who asked for an impossible service to be carried out on time. And Arcad agreed that he would work all night long to deliver that project, and in return, Algamish would tell Arcad how to become wealthy as well. So in exchange for all this work, Arcad received the following advice. Out of all the money that you earn, a part is yours to keep. But wait a second. What do you mean by that? If I get my monthly salary, isn't it technically all mine? No, because a big chunk of it goes straight to pay the rent. So in this case, the money belongs to the landlord. Part of the salary goes to paying a health plan, so then the money belongs to the administrator of the plan, to the doctors. One chunk of it is spent on clothes, so the money is not yours, it belongs to the shop owner. You see, to become wealthy, we need to save a part of what we earn. Under no circumstances, therefore, should we spend more than we earn. In fact, the richest man in Babylon suggests that we save at least 10% of everything we earn. If possible, more than 10%. So, imagine this. If every year I'm saving 10% of what I earn, what am I going to have after 10 years? Some people may say, oh, it's going to be the equivalent of 1 year of salary, right? But that is not true, because we can and we should make money work for us. We can invest. So over the course of 10 years, our savings will multiply. But now be careful. When it comes to investing, trust your money only in the hands of those who understand things. Because in the first year of his investments, Arcad gave all his money to a friend who was a brick maker. And this brick maker had a plan to go travel through Phoenicia to buy jewelry and then come back to resell it. It seemed like a good plan, but there was a problem. This brick maker didn't understand anything about jewelry. So he was conned by the Phoenicians, who gave him some colored stained glass in return for their savings, and then they lost everything. Have you ever heard of a similar story in our day and age? About someone who ventures into an area that they know nothing about and then they end up losing everything? Well, at least Arcad had already gotten into the habit of spending less than what he earned. So over the course of the next 12 months, he continued to save, and then he found a better investment, buying brass for a shield maker. We can clearly see how Arcade's wealth was progressing. So first, he saved a portion of what he earned, at least 10%, and then he researched. He found a good investment. There was still one important piece of this puzzle missing. The profit that Arcade was making by investing in this brass and bronze business was being spent on lavish banquets and drinks and clothing. He was basically burning it all. He was wasting all his profits. And then his mentor Algamish scolded him, saying that Arcade should learn that the fruits of his work should be planted to produce even more fruit. So you see, to get rich, first you have to want to. And then you have to put everything you've got into learning. And then finally, practice what you learn. So, what do we have to learn and practice? Today, we're going to consider 3 important commandments, valuable commandments. And commandment number 1 is spend less than you earn. At a minimum, save 10% of what you earn. If you can, save more. Always remembering to, of course, enjoy life without taking it too far, because if you try to save too much of your salary, you might feel suffocated and you probably give up halfway. So to control your spending, we have to understand that our desires are infinite. It is natural that as we earn more, our expenses will increase because desires are infinite. So because of this, before making any payments, we should always keep in mind the advice that we should never spend more than we earn. Mortgages are a special type of expense that falls into a different category. According to the richest man in Babylon, everyone must own the house that they live in. This isn't always possible, so a good piece of advice is to plan to own your home by taking out a mortgage and then avoid paying your rent. Now, this piece of advice is something that needs to be evaluated carefully because it is not an absolute rule. Firstly, there is no point in taking a mortgage with some ridiculously high interest rates, right? It might make more sense to rent for a longer period of time until you find a fair price. And there's another thing you have to take into consideration. More and more, new generations want mobility. So buying the first property that you see might be not the best idea because you will probably gonna see many different new opportunities in your life. Now, let's go to the second commandment. Make good choices. Just consider the advice of people who know what they're talking about. From experienced people, well-meaning people. Instead of being enchanted with the possibility of incredible gains with a high amount of risk, it's better to choose lower risk opportunities. Although they might offer smaller gains, at least they will be certain. Investments with good liquidity are those that you can quickly drop out whenever you need to. The Richest Man in Babylon teaches us a really interesting lesson about productivity. One of the biggest setbacks in our finances is our lack of decision-making abilities. Now here's the third commandment. Invest your savings so they bring results. Replant the fruits. Choose low-risk investments that provide definite profits. Avoid losing money in risky operations, scams, and other astronomical gains with little effort. Avoid investing in things that you don't understand. First thing, acquire knowledge. Building on the idea of spending less than you earn, there is another idea that I like a lot. Increase your ability to earn more. One of the most direct ways to do this is to seek excellence. Whatever it is your job, it is always possible to examine the results of other colleagues' work, understand who is reaping better results, and learn with them. Usually, these are people who work harder, with more passion, more curiosity, more persistence, more interest, more ethics, more concentration. The commitment to these factors is going to be rewarded over time, and it allows for a greater recognition and more fruit to harvest. Another way to invest well is in knowledge. If I have money in my pocket today, it doesn't necessarily mean that money is going to be with me tomorrow. But good knowledge helps me to earn consistently. Mainly knowledge about finance, entrepreneurship, professional qualification, communication. All of this is going to help me through life. So invest in knowledge. I don't recommend investing in areas that you don't know much about. So if you're saving at least 10% of your earnings, what are you going to do? How are you going to invest that? By acquiring knowledge. This knowledge doesn't need to be just a theoretical knowledge, actually the opposite. The more practical, the better. Therefore, important ways to grow in your wealth is by volunteering. This means approaching people, areas in which you can offer your work, your time for free in exchange for the experience. So experience is something worth a lot of money. This is going to greatly advance your experience and your profit potential. One of the golden rules from the richest man in Babylon is to invest money under the guidance of people who know what they're doing. I like that very much, but my personal comment is that it's no use for a man to be only wise. They also have to be reliable. Okay, so let's review the 3 principles. Spend less than you earn. Make good choices and invest to reap the best results. If you follow these 3 simple commandments, after some time you're going to find that life is really made of choices, and it is the right choices that will lead us to the future that we desire. But like the richest man in Babylon, we also need to learn from the wrong choices and make the most of the lessons that life gives us. And to continue, you can use the form that you're going to find in arata.se/Babylon, and then you can download an ebook about the richest man in Babylon, and you can also receive exclusive tips straight to your email address.